Okay, so how did you make this fettuccine?
With Alfredo. Fettuccine Alfredo and chicken. Breaded chicken.
And did you make it yourself?
No, my mom did. Your grandmother.
Hmm.
I wish I could make it. I can probably make it, but I just didn't have the time.
And
then probably homemade rolls.
it tastes pretty good.
Yeah.
You told me that you cut up the chicken and put salt and pepper on it?
Yes. Is it too much?
Not at all. It tastes pretty good.
Okay.
And these are the chocolates that we got at Saratoga Springs.
Right. Don't eat too. Have a couple of them, okay?
Okay.
Don't eat all.
Which one is this one? Raspberry?
I have no idea. You won't know until you eat it. Is it chocolate on chocolate?
Probably. It tastes pretty good.
All right, buddy. Is that enough questions? Because I got to fix my plate.
Okay.
All right, bud.
What styrofoam do you want me to make for you next?
Either a Gears of War character or anything from DC characters, a hero or villain. Have you done Batman? You haven't done Batman, right?
I don't believe I have.
Maybe Batman.
Here's how my city in Elvenar currently looks. This ancient wonder gives a boost to the damage of my light ranged units and cuts the training speed in the barracks by 15%. Which I think is pretty significant. It cut the time, I think it cut about 10 minutes off the time it takes for me to train. It took me to train 8 tridents from 54 minutes total to 44 minutes total. This chicken is pretty good. These bread rolls are pretty good too. And there's the Irish cream. They smell pretty good as I open the box. Oddly enough, today, when I started filming this video, there was a 3-second countdown when I hit the red button, tap the red button on my phone's camera app. I pulled an all-nighter working on the new 99th Gen Hammond episode. I'm setting up the scene where Michael deals with the Uber driver's wounds from that glass bowl of mustard going flying during a swerve. My idea currently, I already came up with the idea to have Michael use his shirt to wipe the mustard off. I just have to set up the scene. I had some time to brainstorm while me and Dad were at a bar place in which I got it was the California Brew House, if I recall correctly, and I in particular recall having 2 Shirley Temples, 2 clean ones, and then at a place we went to earlier, I believe it was called Bernard's Crossing, I had a dirty Shirley in which at least part of the Sprite was replaced with vodka. Followed by at least 2 clean Shirleys. If I recall correctly, I could faintly taste the vodka. It had that faint, strong alcohol sort of feeling. Sort of aftertaste. It was at Bernard's Crossing that I had 2 $1 orders of deviled eggs, the equivalent of half a dozen followed by a chicken finger sandwich with bacon and mayo. That came with a side of German-style coleslaw.
You may have your...
Is that applesauce?
Mm-hmm. Why, you don't want any?
Oh, it looks great. I was just wondering what it was.
It is.
Oh, that tastes pretty good. As we came into Bernard's Crossing, there was this funny Dr. Seuss parody book, sort of sign, basically a piece of paper that said, "Things I will put up your snake if you don't put on that effing mask." and it had this Dr. Seuss character pointing at his foot while having it extended. And then as we left California Brew House, I was told about this broken 7-Up sign that they were planning on getting rid of because it seemed to me that at California Brew House they were doing a lot of construction. It was a bit of a sort of maze. Just getting into the place. According to my dad, you now have to enter bar places from the back, which isn't a problem. It's just pretty different. To try and be social, both during California Brew House and Bernard's Crossing, I discussed my study abroad trip to Italy and Greece that I took part in back in January. I think from early to mid-January. I talked about my hobby of making styrofoams. And if I recall correctly, in the morning before we went for Bernard's Crossing, excuse me, in which before we went to Bernard's Crossing, we picked Dad's friend Bill up. We took Bill with us to Bernard's Crossing and to California Brew House. Sort of goofing around quite a bit the whole time. In which I said stuff like, have you gone to Florida yet? Are you in Florida yet? Those sort of things. Due to Bill's habit of going to Florida for the winters. It was a sort of a sort of frisk day. Plenty of pretty cool. About roughly as cool as I experienced in Italy during the first day or two. Because Europe has mild winters due to the Great Atlantic Current. Oh, that tastes pretty good. Anyway, when it was dinner time, I was currently in the process of making some parts of the door prop I got from a restaurant building prop within the business friendly section of the On Studio, making certain parts of it transparent so it doesn't conflict with the corner store template as much, because I found it odd how a corner store's doors were kept open during what's supposed to be a late night sort of scene. Also, here's how things stand on Iron Rage. Currently got level 7 on this monument. It seems like you only collect the rewards once. You get these from completing the Labyrinth missions. They sort of operate like this. This sort of campaign has gotten me pretty active within Iron Rage again. The only unit to look out for during the Tier 2, that one, the Priest of the Labyrinth, has a pretty devastating AoE attack that can get through your defenses quite easily. He is always able to that priest unit can cut through my troops like butter in a way. Even though all the other units can't really do that, and my Storms and Envy are the maximum training level of 15. At California Brewhouse, I was given some sticky notes and some paper, which I got to keep. And some pens to write with. This is the current situation in regards to the campaigns. I've been working on completing the storyline missions, not only because completing them with equipment on your troops would be a waste of time, but also because I can get gold to upgrade Blitz's equipment by completing campaign missions. Oddly enough, you have to go to the world map in order to access the Liberation storyline missions. Even at the first star level, these guys can be a serious challenge. And at a cost of more than 1,000 fuel. It's really impressive, to say the least, but unlike in previous sort of campaigns, this doesn't seem to be a mission that'll consume vast amounts of fuel. This is the Labyrinth missions isn't something where I'm going to have to worry. I have to stress over dwindling fuel supplies. These actually are part of the sampling box. I took them out so you would be able to see the chocolates much better. Ooh, that's not ideal. Model the ancient one. Either way, it's pretty disorienting to try to play these campaign missions, especially a really hard one like this, or at least one that's a considerable challenge, while holding this camera, basically recording externally. Either way, it's a fierce fight, but one that can be won with enough hard work and determination. Based on what I've heard, there's a sort of civil war going on within Ethiopia. Hopefully things don't get too chaotic. And doing these sort of campaign missions has been kind of how I ultimately trained up weird. I was expecting some sort of epilogue, but it didn't come. Doing these sort of campaign missions was ultimately how I've been able to get Blitz to level 11. And I'm currently training him within the Hall of Heroes. Currently upgrading his health to be, I think, increased by 200. And these are ultimately the notes I wrote down while inside of the California Brew House. Both times we went to, when we were at Bernard's Crossing and then at California Brew House, we all sat at the bar area. And I drank that Dirty Shirley with vodka that I had at Bernard's Crossing. I drank that slowly through a straw because it's important to drink alcoholic beverages slowly. Also, pretty much as soon as I got back from that, when we left the California Brew House, Dad dropped Bill off at his place, and then he got the car washed, but I didn't see any of that because I fell asleep in the car. And then when we got home and I got here, I fell asleep again for about a few hours. I was pretty tired by the time of when we went to the California Brew House. I think it was within being seated for about 20 minutes that that sort of feeling of tiredness came up, but not that much tiredness, just some tiredness, basically. Meals at Dad's place often have this sort of piecemeal fashion to them, where maybe the main part comes, and then a little bit later there's a sort of dessert. This came about roughly 10 minutes later or so. Tastes pretty good and nice and sweet. And at Bernard's Crossing, I also talked about my Dan Hammond videos showing the female owner an early episode known as Dan Hammond Opens Up a Restaurant. She found it to be pretty funny after watching, I think, maybe a minute and a half of it, if I recall correctly. Also, today was the day I had a VHL Central assignment due, and I finished it after waking up from my afternoon nap, having started it while I was pulling the all-nighter. The Flash Cultural was pretty interesting. Talking about the Museum of Fizdale Museo. I can recognize the name as proven if I just see it spelled out, but it's harder with it not spelled out.